Greetings my dears, in love and light. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. This video is for you. And just to let you know, the course that I am creating is coming out very soon. It's taken a lot of work, it's taking ages, but it'll be with you soon and it's free for Patreon supporters. Okay, so this video is about spiritual bypassing and why it's not such a good thing. So what is spiritual bypassing? Well, the spiritual path promises that we'll sort of be happier, be free of emotional burdens and emotions that pop up on us every day, or more free anyway. We'll be free of mental troubles and we might receive physical healing and just feel so much better. We'll become more like that infinite being that we really are. And it promises, the spiritual path promises that we'll view the world in new ways to help us to achieve happiness. And this is all very true. But as a spiritual person, feeling like we must present ourselves as having lots of inner peace, being very happy and serene and balanced and centered. And if we don't appear that way, then maybe we're not spiritual enough, or that we're not practicing our spiritual practices properly, or that we are unbalanced and ungrounded and unhealed, or that maybe we're not a good healer or not a good teacher or something. So I come up against this sometimes doing what I do. Sometimes it would occur to me, I must make sure I appear to be balanced. Otherwise, people won't recognise that my work is valid if I don't act very balanced or something. So I would come up against this. Now, I'm always myself. I'm very authentic and I always act myself. But sometimes if I was having a day where I didn't feel very balanced, something had happened, and you know, I'm not perfect by any means. If I'd had a day where I felt a bit blue, then I'd like to be able to be in that emotion and work it through, and I can't be happy all the time, and I don't think many of us can be truly happy all the time. And we see those, perhaps those who practice Buddhism or Hinduism or Indian yogis, things like that, and inside I'm sure they have days where they're just not feeling as great, you know. But we must make sure that we are not doing spiritual bypassing, where we put on a veneer of happiness, being balanced, inner peace, and that for others to try to give the illusion that we are perfectly balanced. And I'm here to say that it's okay not to be, that we need to face anything that's going on, and we cannot, for the benefit of others, act super happy and perfect all the time. It's not sustainable, it's not healthy, it's just not possible really. So much of the time I feel pretty happy and balanced and serene, and I've got to that point, I don't know about serene, but I have got to that point where, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, you know, I was a different person. I feel a lot better now. But I still have off days, just like I'm sure you have off days, and we can't be this perfect spiritual practitioner all the time. So that's what spiritual bypassing is, and there's lots of other ways that it presents itself as well that I'll explain in a minute. But that's the key one. I think we need to make sure we're practicing authenticity, and I have a video on my main channel about authenticity if you put that into YouTube and my name. So spiritual bypassing is a way of avoiding unpleasant emotions sometimes as well. So instead of facing traumas and psychological wounds from our past, some spiritual practices, which I also teach as well, help us to practice a bit of detachment from certain things. But what I always say is a detachment is one thing, but in addition, it's very important to, when you're feeling happy and ready to face those inner traumas and psychological wounds, be present in them and work them through. But when I recommend practicing detachment, that is detaching from outcomes of things and not placing your well-being and your happiness on the outcomes of things in your reality. but never detaching from traumas and psychological wounds in your past that must be healed. So it's important that spiritual practitioners don't get this mixed up, that if one is always practicing some form of detachment and avoidance of one's thoughts and emotions, then it's not a healthy thing, it's not sustainable. So techniques used to detach from one's thoughts and emotions and things can be used in a mindfulness way day to day to feel better, but they must be used in conjunction with quality inner work to face those things which need healing. The deeper inner work healing part should never be avoided. It needs to be used together. Okay, some more ways that spiritual bypassing can occur when we are repeating affirmations to feel better rather than diving deep into our repressed traumas and sadness and things like that. So I recommend the use of affirmations, definitely, but again, in conjunction with quality, diving deep inner work to help you to solve those things from your past that are affecting you today. Because affirmations are a bit like a sticking plaster on an emotional wound, and they need to be worked through. So affirmations are great, but in conjunction with other healing. So spiritual bypassing may occur where you just use affirmations to try and feel better, denying what is deep inside. Okay, another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is over-focusing on being positive all the time. So we can feel like that we need to just focus on positivity all the time because the outcome of the spiritual path is that we will feel happier and more positive. So it's like, oh, I must already be there. I must seem like I'm already there. Or the way to get there is just to smother everything with positivity and say it'll be okay and put on a smile all the time. Again, this isn't sustainable. It is denial of those things which need facing and healing. It is a form of resistance trying to be positive all the time because we're not facing those things that we need to work through and provide love to, heal. We're not facing those things. Instead, we are resisting them by smothering them in smiles and positivity, you see. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be grumpy. It's okay to get it out in a safe way. I say, scream into a pillow. That's a safe way to get it out. Talk to someone and have a little cry if you want to. That's a safe way to get it out. Okay, another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is finding negative emotion disgraceful. So on a spiritual path, we can end up getting we are afraid of negative emotions somehow because everything has to be all positive and love and light and all the rest of it. If someone has negative emotions, instead of allowing those in to work them through and to help people, we might feel like, oh dear, that's not good, a negative emotion, I want to get away from that, that's going to lower my vibration. But that is spiritual bypassing again. It's always the bypassing of things, the getting around things, avoidance of things using spiritual concepts. Okay, another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is brushing off others' misfortune as they manifested that. So if someone has something negative happen to them, someone gets ends up in a car accident or they lose their money or something, you could just think, well, that's part of their path, they manifested that, oh wow. And yes, it's part of their learning and experience in this lifetime, but it doesn't mean that they don't deserve help and support and love and all the rest of it. So I'm sure you would provide someone support and love if anything like that happened to them. But I have seen cases where people can detach from being caring because they just say, oh well, they manifested that, that's a lesson they need to learn. And that would be classed as spiritual bypassing. Another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is when we ignore health conditions and blame it on the energies or whatever. So yes, the electromagnetic energies, the geomagnetic energies and the Schumann resonance all do affect us in some way. But it's important not to sort of give your power away and just blame any ailments directly on energies all the time. A lot of physical conditions are manifested by thought and repressed traumas, things like that. Plus if you just hurt yourself, So I see many people blaming their ailments just solely on energies all the time, but it's important to take other things into account, because then you're at the mercy of these energies. You're giving your power away completely, and you're at the mercy of something which you can't control. So not to give your power away in that way. And another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is not upholding your own boundaries in order to appear nice, tolerant and accepting. So we don't want people to walk all over us just because we're pretty nice, It doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries and that we accept any old thing, or even disassociate from feelings of sadness resulting from someone walking all over us. No, we need to have our boundaries set. Personal boundaries, that someone cannot talk to me like that, someone cannot behave that way towards me. They need to be considerate. Just as I would treat them, I'd expect them to treat me that way too. Okay, so although we are nice and loving people, we do need to have our boundaries set so that we don't get walked all over. Okay, another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is when we're trying to appear perfect and balanced, when really we need to talk to someone. So this is a bit like the other point, but with this, sometimes we hold things in because we don't want to appear there's something wrong with us. On the spiritual path, we might want to appear that we're fine all the time and worked everything through, when really we want to talk to someone about it. But if we do, then it's like, well, they're going to think I'm not so balanced, and I'm not going to feel like I'm doing so well. And it just reveals a lot about how you really are. It's a big step sometimes, letting down your walls to talk to someone about whether you're not feeling so good or not doing so well and you need some support. But I'm here to say that we should always talk to others and communicate with others and get their support. Then they feel like they can do that with you, and we all support each other. So when we need to talk to someone, go ahead and do that instead of spiritually bypassing and bottling everything up. Okay, upon realizing we are infinite beings, some people can adopt a mild messiah complex, putting oneself above others. So sometimes when, as we go along the spiritual path, spiritual bypassing can occur that if we realize we are an infinite being, and we are immortal essentially, that a bit of the messiah complex can come in there. Often that does actually happen when a spiritual awakening occurs, because sometimes we might feel like, wow, I've got all this information, I must be very unique. We're all unique, but on some sort of special Jesus-like mission or something. Many people go through that phase and then think, oh well, that was a funny phase. But others, they adopt that permanently and believe they are the Messiah or something like that. So that is a form of spiritual bypassing, because we're bypassing the regular things in life that we need to work through. We're bypassing normal social activity and feeling like we're one with others on the same level, and instead we are elevating ourselves above them, feeling like we're more important, which isn't great, is it? And another way that spiritual bypassing can occur is complaining that others are spiritually underdeveloped and avoiding them and feeling like they are beneath you. So again, I see this from time to time, where if we don't like the behaviour of others, we just say, oh well, they're spiritually underdeveloped, and avoiding them after that and feeling a bit of negative emotion towards them. When really we want to have love for everyone and everything, and it doesn't make us above anyone else, knowing the things we know and realising the things we've realised. And next, spiritual bypassing can occur when we're feeling like we must always be in the right because we are awakened. So we can bypass those things we need to learn and those experiences we need to experience when we have conversations and interactions with others. and we just feel like we're always right because we are awakened. And that's not good, because again, how can we always be right? What is right? What is the ultimate truth? How can we know? Okay. And lastly, how spiritual bypassing can occur, and I did touch on this, is practicing avoidance of thoughts and of emotions rather than facing what is deep inside. We don't want to avoid these things. We can detach from outcomes of events in our lives, but we mustn't avoid those things which are already in the subconscious that need healing. Okay, because then we are bypassing them and smothering that positivity on everything, which isn't sustainable, as I said. So lastly, just to finish up, being aware of all these things, all these ways that spiritual bypassing can occur, then we can just not do it, can't we? And work along on our path towards peace, inner peace, love, happiness, gaining more wisdom and knowledge, consciousness rising. We can stay on that path without avoiding bits and bobs that we need to face. So it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. But if you observe it happening in your reality, you think, okay, yeah, they're spiritually bypassing stuff. Never mind. Have love and understanding for them, and maybe have a chat with them about, instead of skirting around things, using spiritual topics to face them instead. So I'm sending you much love indeed, and I wish you a lovely week.